Alright, well I hope you enjoyed your midterm break. Today we are looking at the work in chapter 7, which is animal nutrition. So we start off with taking a look at diet. Now animals are heterotrophs. Unlike plants, they can't produce their own food. They have to take in food for life. Now there are 7 types of nutrients that are absolutely key for life. These nutrients are your carbohydrates, your proteins, your fats, your vitamins, your minerals, water and fiber. All these make up a balanced diet. Now let's quickly touch on energy needs. Some people require more energy than other people, and that is because we all have different levels of activity. For example, a person sitting at a desk working all day does not need as much energy as a person working, for example, on construction. That person is going to burn a lot more energy. It's also important to note that guys need more energy than females, and that is because males generally have more muscle mass. Also note that pregnant females have higher energy demand than non-pregnant females. And lastly, note that as you age, your energy demand decreases, and that is because your metabolism actually starts to slow down. Now that we've covered that, let's take a look at nutrients. Now, what are nutrients? Nutrients are your vitamins, your minerals and water. These are all essential for maintaining life and for growth. So vitamins are organic substances and they are needed in only trace amounts. They act as antioxidants in your body, and they're also key in some reactions in your body. Minerals, however, are inorganic substances, also required, however, in only trace amounts. Then we've got fiber. Now fiber keeps your digestion working optimally. How it works is fiber actually aids in peristalsis, which is the movement of food along your intestine. Muscles in your intestine will actually squeeze the food and push it forward, and the role fiber plays in this is that fiber actually puts pressure on the intestinal wall because it adds bulk, and this pressure caused by the fiber that makes your intestines expand actually triggers this peristalsis, the movement of food along the intestine. So it's essential in good digestion. Now let's quickly touch on fat and heart disease, because there's actually a link between saturated fats, which are your animal fats, and these usually are solid at room temperature, and heart disease. Now what happens is if we take in too many animal fats, these fats contain cholesterol, and the cholesterol can actually impact and clog up our arteries. The lining of our arteries get clogged up, and then blood can't travel freely through these arteries. And if this happens on, say, our coronary artery, which is the artery that supplies oxygen to the heart, then there will be less oxygen supplied to the actual heart muscle, and this actually causes oxygen deprivation to the muscle, which can lead to coronary artery disease. Cholesterol also stiffens the arteries, and so overall it's just better to consume moderate amounts of foods high in saturated fats. Excess energy intake is also linked to obesity, because if we store excess fat, it will actually lead to obesity, and obesity is actually considered a disease because it's so detrimental for your health. Obesity is a serious risk factor for cardiovascular disease such as coronary artery disease. On the other hand, however, we look at malnutrition, which is inadequate amounts of energy. Now there are various types. For one type we have is kwashiorkor, which is a protein deficiency, and this presents as children that are actually underweight, but they don't look underweight because they've got these huge bellies, and this is actually because of edema, which is fluid buildup. But then we also get marasmus, which is a protein and energy malnutrition, and these children are really thin and they look really emaciated. Now we're going to take a look at digestion, and there's actually 2 types of digestion. You get mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. Mechanical digestion is the process of mechanically breaking down food molecules into smaller pieces. Chewing is one of these processes, and the other one is the churning of your stomach. As the stomach contracts and churns, it actually grinds the food into smaller particles. Now, chemical digestion, on the other hand, is the process of chemically breaking down molecules, for example like starch, to simple sugars. So you've got a molecule which is chemically altered, broken down into a smaller, different molecule. This is often done by enzymes such as amylase, proteases and lipase. Now, one of the most important mechanical digestive processes is performed by our mouth, and our teeth play a critical role in this. Figure 7.11 in your book shows the anatomy of the tooth. I suggest you study it and actually redraw it and relabel this figure as a means to familiarize and memorize. Now, mammals have 4 types of teeth. We've got our incisors, which are our front teeth. We've got our canines, which are the teeth that actually look like fangs. And then we've got our premolars and our molars at the back. Mammals also have 2 sets of teeth during their lifetime. First, we have our milk teeth, and then these teeth we pull out, I think it starts around age 7 to 14, 15, maybe a little bit later. And these teeth will fall out, we pull them, and our permanent teeth replace them. We have 32 teeth as an adult. Now, dental decay is caused by bacteria in your mouth. Now, there's normal bacteria growing in your mouth, and it forms a plaque over your teeth. And if you don't brush your teeth, this plaque forms tartar, which is a very hard substance and it's really hard to get off. Now, tooth decay occurs when you eat a lot of sugars, and the bacteria in your mouth actually breaks down these sugars and it produces acid. And this acid actually eats away at the enamel covering your teeth, the protective layer of your teeth. Now, if you heard the word alimentary canal, you're probably wondering, what exactly are we talking about? Well, that is the tube that runs from our mouth right to our anus as part of the digestive system. Other organs that are part of our digestive system include our liver and our pancreas. Now, it's important to know that there are sphincters along this alimentary canal which allows food to pass through, and it can also act as to prevent food from going through. Mucus aids food to move smoothly through the alimentary canal. So how it works: you bite off a piece of food, you start chewing the food, breaking it down to smaller pieces. Saliva mixes with the food until it forms a bolus. You then swallow the bolus, it goes down the esophagus. While this is happening, amylase, the enzyme in your saliva, starts to digest starch inside the food. Then your esophagus takes the food down to your stomach. Before it gets to your stomach, there's a sphincter which relaxes and allows the food to go into your stomach. It's also important to note that the epiglottis prevents food from going into your lungs when you swallow, which basically just means it prevents food from going down the wrong pipe. In your stomach, the food gets churned by the stomach and it mixes with enzymes and mucus. This mixture is then called chyme. Enzymes in the stomach such as pepsin starts to break down protein. Now, pepsin works optimally in acidic conditions, which is great because the stomach cells also secrete hydrochloric acid, which is highly acidic. In young mammals, renin clots milk, and this allows pepsin to break it down. After about 1 to 2 hours, the sphincter in your lower stomach relaxes and allows the chyme to go into the duodenum, which is the first part of your small intestine. Now, once the food goes into the small intestine, there's another bunch of enzymes that get added to this chyme, and these enzymes are made in the pancreas. They're secreted via the pancreatic duct, and they include amylase, protease and lipase. Amylase, which breaks down starch to maltose, lipase, which breaks down fats to fatty acids and glycerol. These enzymes, however, do not work well in acidic conditions. That's why with these enzymes, the pancreas also secretes pancreatic juice, which is highly alkaline, which neutralizes the acidity caused by HCl. Bile also gets added to the duodenum. Bile is made in the liver, and it's a yellow-green alkaline liquid made in the liver, gets stored in the gallbladder and gets secreted via the bile duct. This helps to digest fat by breaking up the larger fat droplets into smaller fat droplets. This makes it easier for the pancreatic lipase to chemically break down to digest the fat. This is called emulsification. Bile also contains a pigment of broken down red blood cells. Now in our small intestine we've also got villi, and I think of a villi as small tiny finger-like projections inside your small intestine. On these villi are enzymes that digest food. Here you will find maltase, which breaks down maltose to glucose. You will also find protease, which breaks down the polypeptides to amino acids. You will also find lipase, which breaks down fats to fatty acids and glycerol. And now that all these enzymes have worked together to break down our molecules into very small molecules, they can easily be absorbed into our bloodstream. So what happens is they go through the wall of the small intestine, and surrounding the wall of the small intestine you will find many capillaries, and these molecules can diffuse across the wall of the small intestine into the capillaries and travel in the blood. Water, mineral salts and vitamins are also absorbed here. What's left in the small intestine, however, travels to the large intestine, which is your colon and your rectum. This undigested food passes past the cecum and the appendix. And only water and salt are absorbed in the large intestine. What's left is indigestible food, fiber, dead bacteria, as well as dead cells. Egestion then takes place via the anus. That's how normal digestion should work. However, we get a condition called diarrhea, which is an excess of watery stools. Now what causes diarrhea? Well, often bacteria such as cholera. This bacteria is often found in areas where there's very poor hygiene and limited access to fresh water. This can be very dangerous, and it's actually the second largest cause of death worldwide in children. So what happens? Well, the bacteria in your small intestine actually secrete a toxin, and this toxin causes the accumulation of chloride ions. This decreases the water potential and results in water moving out of the blood into the small intestine and being excreted. Treatment, however, is fairly simple, as it only requires oral rehydration therapy. Now after all of this, what happens to the food that's absorbed by the blood? Well, it's taken to the liver via the hepatic portal vein, and in the liver it's processed, and from there it will be taken to areas in the body where these nutrients are required. So that's it for lesson 7. Let's take a look at some past papers. Alright, question 14. A person has their gallbladder removed. Which statement is correct? Well, we know that the gallbladder is responsible for producing bile, which helps in the emulsification of fat. Thus, we know the fat digestion is going to be affected. Thus, they will only be able to eat fat in small amounts. Question 5. A. Describe how food is moved along the small intestine. Well, if you remember, that was the movement of peristalsis. Peristalsis, which is the movement of food along your intestine. Circular muscles in the small intestine squeeze and propel food forward. Note also that circular and longitudinal muscles work antagonistically to each other. We also learned that the small intestine is lined by many villi. Now figure 5.1 shows a longitudinal section of a villus, and figure 5.2 shows a cross section of the same villus. The diagrams are not drawn to scale. So the question asks us to name the structures P, Q and R. So P, Q and R. P, we can see, is the outer layer of cells. That's the epithelium covering the villi. Q is the capillary network, the blood supply to the villus, and R is the lacteal. Question 2 asks us the blood that flows from S enters a vein. It asks us to name the vein that transports blood away from the small intestine. While we know that the blood going away from the small intestine is the blood with all our molecules in, all our nutrients. This goes to the liver via the hepatic portal vein. Cell T, this cell over here, is an example of the cells that form the surface of the villi. Explain why there are many microvilli on cell T. While microvilli contain our enzymes, they house our enzymes which are crucial in digestion. Microvilli also help because they increase the surface area on the villi, and they increase the contact that takes place between the food and the enzymes. This maximizes absorption. Some of the cells on the surface of the villi secrete mucus for protection. Suggest what the villi need to be protected against. Well, remember that the stomach secretes hydrochloric acid, which is very acidic, and mucus will actually protect the stomach, small intestine, from this acidity. Also remember that the enzymes are meant to digest, so this mucus actually protects us from digesting ourselves. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Good luck with the studying and go and get those good marks.